Getting our friends together isn't as easy as it used to be. We get it. Life comes at you fast. But trust us, your pals are desperate for a good hang. And when they hear you stock the party with drinks from Drizzly, they'll be banging down your door. Let Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery, take care of the supplies. All you need is an excuse. It doesn't even have to be a good one. It's your dog's birthday. The loquats are finally ripe. Whatever. With Drizzly, you can compare prices on a massive selection of beer, wine, and spirits and get them delivered straight to your door, which means you can entice the crew to leave their houses without ever leaving yours. Whatever the occasion, download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. Today. Must be 21 plus. Not available in all locations. Man, I wish they had Drizzly when I used to play D&D and Riffs. Maybe it's time for me to start again. Thanks, Drizzly.
The podcast playground.
Hooray! Hey, it's my song. Let's sing it. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it, sing. It's gonna be fucking awesome.
Hello.
Yeah.
Welcome back. It's the coolest geek alive. How you doing, everybody?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling good. I'm very retrospective at the moment. I had to start again. I had begun recording this. And then I had to re-record it because, damn it, sometimes that's what you have to do in the podcasting world. Not that I'm bitching about it, man. I love doing this. This is my favorite thing to do every week. And I get a little nervous sometimes when I don't feel like I have something to say. And then all of a sudden, boom, it comes to me. And this week, I'm actually starting a live stream kind of portion of this show. It's not this show, but it's just in support of it. And it's called Toys with the coolest geeks alive. I'm doing it with some of my best friends, including somebody who I speak about on this show all the time, Aaron Sparrow, editor and writer extraordinaire. He's written animation as well for a recent episode of Young Justice, actually, with our good friend Craig Weissman, who's such a great creative person in himself. Shout out to you guys. Toys are a huge part of my life. A lot of time people have asked me, how do I know so much? And it's usually more like, oh yeah, how do you know so much? Well, because I play with toys. And I'm a very high level, I play with toys kind of guy. And what this means is I'm watching the market, and the market tells you everything about what is popular, what is not popular, and what people could just care less about. You go to the store enough, you see what's on the shelf. And anybody who knows me will tell you, I don't care where I'm at, a Rite Aid or a Target or whatever, I go, all right, I'm running to the toy section real quick. I always run to the toy section. I'm always seeing. I don't buy anything in general anymore. I'm only there for scouting purposes. I'm looking at what is selling. That is entertainment in a nutshell. Look at this. Here it is. My father is a rock star. I remember somebody once told me he was a one-hit wonder. And I said, dude, my father is a double mega hit wonder. And it's true. We're Not Gonna Take It and I Wanna Rock are stadium songs. Twisted Sister is played alongside bands that are considered to dwarf them. Okay? AC/DC and Queen and Guns N' Roses and Metallica or whoever else you might hear at a stadium, because everybody knows that everybody knows the song, and it's a great song for the stadium. It is a small collection of acts, and Twisted Sister is amongst them, and my father's the songwriter for Twisted Sister. I love writers. I love writing. I respect my father so much. He's a great writer beyond just being a great songwriter. He's a great script writer. He's written tons of awesome screenplays that nobody has ever seen, or very few people have read, I'm sure, because I know he's been a little bit hesitant and insecure about his creativity, as I often am. They're great, though. He actually just put out his first fiction book called Frats, which is one of the best things he's ever written. It's based on true events. My father is very talented. He's got a real knack for, I don't know, just laying things out in, I think, a plain and intelligent way. He went to Congress and he spoke against the PMRC in a very plain and intelligent way, and he really bowled them over with that intelligence. And I've always admired that, and I'm basically a student of that plain communication of very high-level intellect. So we're here today to talk about toys. Toys, 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 as the new show is called. Toy buyers, people who get serious about toys, generally turn it into a business in some way. For me, it was trying to get involved with Masters of the Universe, failing at that, getting involved with my heroes, Four Horsemen Studios, who are some of the most amazing toy sculptors of all time. My buddy Aaron Sparrow, who deals in toys. He used to be the buyer for, I think it was called Toy Rocket. I might be wrong about that. It was an old, a big website that sold a lot of different toys across the country. So has a lot of links to different people. And he was the person who was gauging interest in things and buying things based on this interest. People like us, you can't argue with us about this shit. Like, you think you can. You think you can, because you think that, like, there's something that hasn't been covered or we haven't said. But our knowledge comes from who is buying things. And if something is popular, I promise you, people will be out there buying things. People will be out there trying to capitalize on the thing that is popular. And when things are not popular, the things that are made don't sell. And just looking at that metric alone, just completely by itself, can tell you everything about how healthy any of these brands are. Doesn't have to give me any details about what's going on, but then when you're somebody like me or Aaron, we get into having like a pastime of reading the way the media is spinning various things and then seeing the way things are actually selling and going, oh my God, all these people look like assholes to toy people because we fucking know. We know how well the new Star Wars films have been doing. Not very well, guys. There's some things that have been selling. Still classic things sell. The same way Marvel was always kind of like impenetrable because it was so classic. And now they've been putting out movie waves based on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And now we've had slump waves of Marvel Legends that you can see that the films are not connecting with the audience because Shang-Chi's Marvel Legends wave did not sell so well. And because the Legends wave of the Eternals did really not sell so well, and it seemed like those ones were everywhere. There are so many different lines of toys that you could just tell how well the movie's doing, how well is it connecting with an audience. And largely, these film studios, they're building merchandise into the cost of the films. This is why the budgets have inflated so ridiculously. It goes all the way up to the budgets of the films because they know all the way down to the toys is going to be making them money. And let me tell you how much money a good toy can make you. There's a reason why Power Rangers has been going on for forever. There's recent articles that have been going around at the latest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles being a toy cash grab because the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles movies did not sell toys. Yeah, because they were ugly. Those were some ugly turtles, man. Those turtles were not charming. And it's like, it's a little tone deaf, I think. The second movie was a little bit better, but I can't say it scratched the itch of the Universal Turtles fan, young and old. And I think in all things, there's probably a way to do that, even though they've been perpetually changing this stuff. You can listen to my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem 10 characters or 11 characters in name only, whatever it is. I did an episode, like it was a weekend episode a couple weeks back. But, I talk about how they might have done a little bit of a better job there with the recent animated movie. But you can see a lot of different things. The funny thing is, great toys always sell. So if the toys are great, Spawn, Todd McFarlane, he didn't need to have anything huge going on with Spawn. And you can tell me, I maybe I'm remembering the dates wrong, but I think that the animated Spawn HBO series came much later in the game, as did the film. Initially it was the Spawn toys on the back of the very popular comics, and the fact that the toys were really cool at the time. Some cool toys. People who really like toys like me and collect at a high level, we like sculptors, man. We appreciate somebody who can bring something to life, make something unreal real. Like, that is cool. When I can hold a miniature replication of something really gnarly or really godly or cool, like I appreciate that, to personify greatness in various ways, to bring to life a picture, not just in my mind, but here physically, that I can touch and interact with. Like, that is so cool to me. I've always found it so interesting. And because I was a writer, playing with toys spoke to that, and it really helped me even more as I went, because my toy hobby aged with me. I had an action figure city since I was like, I don't know, 13, I think, was my first desk that I turned into a city. And then it grew. I eventually moved it to my parents' basement. And I had like 2 tables and a little side table. And I would rearrange these half a dozen buildings that I had. There was a few different buildings that were put out at the time. There's this Ghostbuster building that I had a couple versions of, and a Spawn Alley that I had a couple versions of, and I could make a 2-story version of. And I would use the pieces in other places around the city to connect different places, and I would collect anything that I could find that was like a piece of a building. Nowadays it's much easier to find things like this, but when I was growing up, like, you couldn't find any of this shit at all. So I would have to just like collect it. I would buy certain action figures because of the things they came with. I remember I bought an amazing line of action figures from Art Asylum. I would never have normally bought this because they weren't characters that I cared about. It was just like these classic vampire characters or classic horror characters or something like that were like public domain. It was like an interpretation of Frankenstein and Dracula and whatever else. And they were very cool. But like, that wasn't my thing, and it wasn't the right scale exactly for me too. But and I'll tell you about scale in a second. But the thing that I liked was these diorama pieces that they came with. I remember one of them came with like this, a part of a prison cell. And it was super cool. It was just like chains holding this wooden bench to the wall, and the thing was like latched to the wall, and it was a dingy stone cell. And I was like, oh, I want that, need that. And the other one was like a Frankenstein setup kind of thing that I used for years, here, there, because I had it. And it was like you would get all these props that you had, and then you would tell stories based on the characters that you had and the props that you had. And different characters were really clearly identified by films and interpretations of them, and other characters, like, most of the kids who got into Ninja Turtles, they weren't reading the comic book. They got into it from the animated series. It was a little independent comic book that not a lot of people read, really, in the scheme of things. And it was done really well by that animated series that interpreted it in a number of different ways, but launched it to huge popularity overnight. And that popularity comes with non-readers as well as readers. So the fandom of Ninja Turtles really starts with the animated series, loosely based on the comic book. And the animated series should always try to refer back to the comic book in its interpretations, to try to do that better justice in whatever ways make sense. But the foundations really go to that animated series, and then the films that came after it, with the third one something that we're trying to erase from our memories. But the first two, especially the first one, just really demonstrating how these things can be done really seriously and really coolly. And it's funny, the Ninja Turtles in particular as a toy line, and again, this is why I know about all these silly things, but it's a parody of Daredevil. Stick is the dude who teaches Daredevil how to like hone his heightened senses to be a karate man when he's a little kid. He's like this homeless guy who knows stuff and he's blind. And he teaches him how to be this blind superhero that we know and love. And so Splinter is the master of these Ninja Turtles who teach, and it's a little bit of a dig at like what this homeless blind guy knows karate, and he taught you all the things that you need to know. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny too because I never really even thought about that when I was playing with Daredevil. I always just sort of like accepted that because of his heightened senses, he was able to get his shit together on his own. Like he worked at it, and he was blind, and it was really hard, but he figured it out like that. That I always thought. So I suppose it is kind of a silly thing of Stick having taught him, this blind guy, but I thought it was kind of cool. And Splinter, this is cool. But it's a more exaggerated version of what is a little funny and a little out there as the situation goes. So now it's a rat named Splinter who taught them karate, which is certainly a big, joke to some degree as well. The other thing about the Ninja Turtles was the assassin organization that Daredevil deals with in his comic books and other characters deal with in Marvel is called the Hand. The assassin organization in the Ninja Turtles is called the Foot, which works just as good, man. It's like it's supposed to be a joke, but I always saw Punisher and Raphael as tropes of Wolverine and the Punisher to some degree. I've always wanted to write comic books of them playing off of classic Wolverine stories as classic Raphael stories, playing off classic Punisher stories as classic Casey Jones stories. And I think you could really do that and exaggerate the things, because it's all just a silly version of the other thing, which is rather serious when you get to the core of it. So it just brings it all down to a sillier level. The original comic books, that's what they did. So when you are taking these things down, like, a character like Wingnut, he's a great one because he's another character trope. He's Batman, but he's a bat. He's a giant bat who's crazy because clearly Batman's crazy. These things are very funny. I've gone off on a tangent about the Ninja Turtles, but these characters and this source material of the toys and the connection to the toys and all this stuff, this is where you need to take all your inspiration from, because this is where the love of the fandom begins. Toys are the place where the love of the fandom begins. If we can watch your thing and then go play with the toy and imagine other stories, oh man, it's awesome. The terrible thing about what's happening in the Marvel Universe right now is we no longer want to play with those toys. We don't like any of the stories that are coming out of the current things that they've done. So we no longer want to play with the toys. And we're like telling stories from before the blip. If you're somebody who's a Marvel Legends fan who's got the Marvel Legend toys, because you don't like a lot of the minutia of what's been going on in the thing. You don't really want to play with that Adam Warlock unless you go, ooh, I like the look of that Adam Warlock and I'm going to go do Adam Warlock right, which I'm sure some people are doing that too. But for the most part, these lines, the Eternals, that wave, lots of waves and lots of movie figures, people are starting to turn their back on them. And that demonstrates how well they're doing with the audience. It always does. Because there are normal people who will come down from on high to buy a thing when the thing is popular. And there are just a standard, tried and true complex of people who really read and worship the ground some of these things are walked on, whether they worship the characters individually or they're like me and I think my friend Aaron Sparrow, who worship the universes that these characters reside in. There is something wonderful going on here that leads to wonderful storytelling that is really high level and intellectual now that it's had time to live in the population, and the smartest writers amongst us have been able to flock over to the industry. And as more and more really intelligent and savvy people have come to be additive to comics because they loved them in the first place, that is what comics has become, or at least it was for a long time, because that's the industry. We sell toys, we sell comic books, we sell statues, we sell collectible things that we, really high-level people within this industry, view as the greatest art that has ever been here on planet Earth, and nobody has noticed. There are incredible sculptors like the Eric Treadaway, and he's from Four Horsemen Studios. This dude he's off the chain. He's just another level. This sculptor, and their whole studio, they're all together another level. Eric Mays, also known as Corn Boy, Jim Preziosi, I think it is. These guys started at McFarlane Toys, made some of the greatest toys ever over there, and have gone on to just continue to knock it out of the park. Now working on their own thing, Mythic Legions. Oh, so cool. Check out Mythic Legions. That's your homework tonight. If you haven't looked at the Four Horsemen Studios Mythic Legions line of figures yet, go look at some pictures of the Mythic Legions. The legions of pictures of the Mythic Legions. They're so freaking cool. They're so damn talented. And James Groman, the guy who did My Pet Monster and the Mad Balls. Oh my God, so cool. The things that he's brought to life, just like sculpted. There are a lot of really cool sculptors out there. There's another guy, I think his name's Andrew Bell. He's one of my favorite designer toy sculptors. There are tons. And I got turned onto that when I was the host of the Designer Toy Awards for 3 years. It was a great honor. Shout out to Clutter Magazine for bringing me on as the host of their award show for a few years. I love their company, love their magazine, and was really honored to be a part of the award show. And Andrew Bell, he was somebody whose work I just fell in love with at the time. I've always been somebody who had generally bought just regular toys, that were based on things that I liked, that I read, that I watched. So films and animated series and comic books. And those were my things. Those were my passions. And like I said, I brought it up to a very high level. My city got bigger and bigger. It eventually became very custom in a lot of ways. I had buildings that I had made myself and pieces of trash that I had made over the years, and it was huge. I had a big fire quite a few years ago now, and I lost my whole toy collection and all my toys in my city. I've never built back my city, even though my friends and my girlfriend, Aaron Sparrow and Miss Julie Bright, they've been building my collection larger and larger over time by loving me very sweetly. But that is my pastime, and I have done this since I was a small child. So even though I don't buy these toys anymore, I still go to the toy section and I look it up and down because I want to know what's going on. And the best indicator of what's going on is that. And you know how you say you can't bullshit a bullshitter? Well, you can't bullshit me. It's just too easy for me to check on anything that I wouldn't know in terms of you don't have to get it from the manufacturer if your friends are people who have to sell these toys at shows. When you are actually friends with the market that you represent, when those are actually your people, you know what's going on, always. And a toy will sell whether or not the material is good or well received or does as well if it's a nice toy. And if it's a good representation of characters that people like. I'm sure these Ninja Turtle toys are doing pretty good because I really like them. I thought they looked pretty cool. And usually speaking, they'll do at least mediocre well if you as an individual likes the look of them, because there's tons of things that sell that I'm like, I don't like that at all. But they'll sell pretty good. And then there's the ones that everybody can agree we love. And then those ones will go on for forever. And then it'll be about what characters and, like the Marvel Legends line. Or is it a movie that we didn't like? Okay, well, we're not going to buy these Eternals figures. It's pretty easy. Same thing's going on with Star Wars and Star Trek. It's interesting. I kind of wanted to start today with Star Trek and Star Wars as a metric for toys and what is done with these franchises and how companies think. Star Wars seemed similar to Star Trek, and Star Wars has always been a hugely successful merchandising, empire. For years, merchandise for Star Wars, depending on what it was always very just healthy as could be. Occasionally they would make a crappy choice here or there, but in general, if they were making the right things, there was this huge appetite for Star Wars toys. And Star Trek, on the other hand, always struggled. And this is something about toys. We want characters who move around. So buying a Picard action figure was not generally an action figure you wanted to buy. This, though, stinks for the propagation of goodness on screen, because Star Trek was always Star Trek because it wasn't that. It was about intellectually high-level people who were able to get along with one another and were not lost in petty differences, overcoming great difficulty and great evil and great intellectual circumstances. It was a show about the higher mind. And basically everything that you see on television and in film is about the lower mind. The majority, it is. Even if it's about the higher mind on some level, it's acted out as a lower mind execution. Where's the conflict? Who's fighting with who? Where's conflict? Conflict. We have useless conflict. We have useless conflict in our lives and useless conflict in most of our entertainment. When the conflict is not useless, that's when we're happy. When people are conflicting because they're trying to get something that they desperately want and they desperately deserve because they've worked hard and they've struggled to get it, we're happy campers. We love that situation. But when we're dealing with toys, if you want to sell toys, Star Trek has felt the need in recent years to be more like Star Wars so that they could sell toys. But these guys had no personal problems. It was a mandate behind the scenes from Gene Roddenberry, one of my heroes, and he's one of my heroes because of this mandate, to limit the material in this specific way, that the problems were all external, not from within. They were backing each other up. They were generally getting along and trying to figure out a way to get along at all times. And the other stories, there are plenty of stories about them not breaking and not falling into old traps by behaving kindly to everybody and getting along with everybody and meeting unfavorable interactions with a positive, cool head, trying to let cooler heads prevail. These don't make compelling action figures. I love those toys and I would have them anyway because I am like a crazy supreme toy guy. But in general, it doesn't appeal to the public. Meanwhile, you could sell phasers. Star Trek phasers, I think, have generally always done well. And I think cosplaying as Star Trek people, that's been going on for forever and ever because we want to embody these characters. We want to be those people, not petty and intelligent and able to work things out and get through disputes in our lives. We like to cosplay as the characters from Star Trek because they are high-level human beings. This is why people like me hate the modern day Trek, because they're not high-level human beings. They're petty human beings. They're not the Star Trek of old, because and the people who said that shit was boring, I think, are the people who needed to be exposed to that kind of thing the most, but had been overstimulated with a lot of the conflict, and that's okay. People who are more optimistic and are trying to avoid all this conflict and try to get along, it's very nice for us to read a really nice Superman comic book or have a nice Star Trek to go to. I don't want a Star Trek about the freaking Black Ops, or a Star Trek about how, oh no, Jean-Luc Picard was secretly filled with hubris his entire career. How dare he think that there wasn't corruption and things going on behind? How dare he believe in the ideal? Oh my God, are you kidding me? Belief in an ideal was the reason why we loved Star Trek. It's very disappointing that unfortunately the toy sales dictated this. And I will say that's my lament of Star Trek as a toy guy. Also, the ships would sell with Star Trek. There was different things that would sell with Star Trek. And I mean, like the Star Trek would sell to a certain degree, but it wasn't the juggernaut that the other things are, because it was real hardcore fans and hardcore fans of toys and geek culture who would get Star Trek stuff. But not every Star Trek fan was getting Star Trek stuff because they weren't all merchandise-oriented type people. But it's a merchandise-oriented world. And the merchandise-oriented people, they go more for the Star Wars. And that's why Star Trek has become more like Star Wars over time. I want to get to some of my notes here because I haven't really looked at anything here. I said this is toys. Merchandising tells all about current state of geek culture. Merchandise is what it's all about when it comes to the fandom and the corporations. We should have a symbiotic relationship. Oftentimes we don't have a symbiotic relationship because of whatever nonsense is going on at the top. There are mandates right now, corporate incentives for money to go and do things a certain way and depict the world in a certain way and get free money to make content. So if your content is all containing certain things, checking certain boxes, you can get money that way. So this affects how things are done from the top down. The money from the top is trying to change the buying habits at the bottom. Because traditionally speaking, toy sales and merchandise sales basically drive everything. The people who are buying the things, they dictate the market. And honestly, I think that's very fair. The people who are buying the things dictate the market. It doesn't make any sense for any version of social terraforming to try to take over the market. And I don't actually think it's going to ever be able to, because it's such a trickle-down thing. And the people who actually buy and appreciate the things are a relatively small group of people. I'm one of those people. We dictate the terms with our money. We buy the things. And if we're not buying the things, if we're not ordering the things, if the things aren't showing up in our stores because we don't like the things, dude, no one's buying your things. And they want you to buy the things. So they are learning, and there's a lot of retroactive correction going on across the board as ultimately they see what sort of toy sales they get from everything. And I'm sure they will eventually learn, but you've heard the term, they always learn the wrong things. They do. They always learn the wrong things from every situation. I mean, they literally would have a better chance just going and talking to a good toy dealer who's not up his ass and is willing to explain to you the market and what's selling and what's not selling. There's easy ways to understand what is really going on, what people are really interested in, and nothing has changed. Let me tell you, nothing has changed. The market is always what the market's ever been. We would buy an Ellen Ripley figure yesterday, and the market would still buy an Ellen Ripley figure today. And we would still buy a great Sarah Connor figure yesterday and today. Nobody wants a Rey figure. And perhaps there are some little girls who are going to grow up and they're going to want the Rey figure. And perhaps some of these little girls are online and they are on Twitter and they're following. And perhaps even one of them is listening to me. And forgive me if I'm insulting your Rey and you really like her. It's all well and good. The truth of the matter just is with the audience, not your audience in total, because there's always somebody who likes something. I like lots of things that not everybody likes. But the market, it's not about what you like. It's about what does everybody like in general. And what everybody likes in general can basically be sussed out by what things beyond the films and the television shows are being bought in the market. And if you're paying attention to that, like I am, you're basically never wrong. Sometimes you're a little bit behind on your information. But that's about it, because you can't bullshit a bullshitter. And I know what's going on in the market. I've been watching it my entire life since I was a little kid. I can tell you what's popular. I can tell you what's not so popular. I can tell you what has a really solid small fan base that could be blown up into a larger fan base. And I can tell you what's bubbling right underneath the surface and about to blow up. I'm not like a speculator, but I pay attention to all this shit. So I always know. I've only ever used my information in terms of how I write pitches and what companies I go to and what I'm working on and what I'm getting in my own collection. I know this information because I used to just be following every week what was coming to the stores, what toys are coming out, what comic books are coming out, what films are coming out, what trailers are coming out. I love to watch trailers. I love comedies. I love a good movie. I always like to be up on my entertainment stuff because I work in entertainment, and my aspiration is to be the best there is at what I do in entertainment. Whatever it is I do in entertainment, I want it to be the best there is. And, forgive me if this sounds arrogant, because it's never like a thing of like I'm thinking about other people and I'm like, fuck all those other people. No, I love other people. I want everybody to like do the best that they can do. Like, because the best I can do is, going to be whatever it is that I can fucking imagine, or whatever it is that I get the opportunity to do. And the best that you do is going to be the best that you can imagine, and whatever you get the opportunity to do. And I hope it's great. I hope it's the greatest it can be. I really do. I wish that for everybody. I want everybody to have a chance at whatever forms of greatness they possibly can aspire to. And I want you to not get in the way of my chance of that, please. I aspire to greatness. I would like to do great things. I would like people to be like, yes, we're so glad that Jesse was here. Look what he did. Isn't that great? Like, that's what I would love. I can't wait. And to some degree, I get told, by my sweet girlfriend, and occasionally by some of my, people who have followed me longer in my career, that I have already done that in so many ways. To me, it seems small. It seems like a small contribution compared to the contribution I wish to make. And it's good to have aspirations, and having aspirations and ideals and things like that. It comes from admiring men like Jim Henson and Walt Disney, and admiring sculptors like Eric Treadaway and James Groman, seeing the greatness that they have made and going, oh, I love this. This makes me so happy to see this. Makes me so happy to see that this is possible. I want to show people that things are possible too, just like them. And that's really, I dedicate this show and everything I do to people who have proven to me that things are possible, like my father and Jim Henson and Stephen Jobs and so many people. Appreciating artists, appreciating the craft of things is what it's all about. I think so many of the people like me and like Aaron, we love all this stuff. We love toys, we love movies, but we love it deeply, we love it passionately. We play D&D, and we do the deeper versions of the thing. Me and my friends, we made up a Star Trek role-playing game that we played based on D&D because we love Star Trek that much. Star Trek has things and ways to capitalize on Star Trek. It's just not action figures. But Star Wars, we've seen, it's not evergreen. People still love Star Wars. The classic stuff will still do good, the right stuff anyway. But even some of that stuff has begun to tank over time through just a general fatigue of the brand, which is very clear to see if you're somebody like me. You can't deny this shit. Like Hollywood, everything's a PR thing. So they're like PR. And all you get is Hollywood news. That's half of the culture is news out of Hollywood. And their news out of Hollywood, if you're hearing it out of Hollywood, it's because a press release was put out. Or somebody was called and told to spin something a certain way. Especially with the van baiting articles that are about. There are things that really aggravate people like me. And those things, they keep trying to twist these things into we're sexist or we're whatever we are. Because we're not buying their products. But it has nothing to do with that. And everything to do with a sort of artistic merit that has been percolating in fandom. The people who really care about the art and have gone so far as to build a life around it where they're now a merchant or they're now working in the industry like me so that we can affect how we play with these toys. When me and my friend Aaron, when we talk about writing, we refer to the characters as the toys, about playing with the toys right. That's a term in the industry, actually. They say when you're done with your story arc working at Marvel or DC, you got to put all the toys back in the toy box. You got to put all the villains back in jail. Put everybody back where they were so that the next writer or artist who comes on knows where everything is. Industry people know how to do this correctly. Like, we know what to do. We know how to handle these things. Especially, even we know how to problem solve these things when they shoot themselves in the foot by handling it wrong in the first place. There are so many right ways to go about handling everything, and it's all about sort of like an admission of your guilt. And these companies, they don't know how to do that. They can't say, oh man, we've been really screwing the pooch with a lot of our Star Wars offerings of late. They can't admit failure like that. And there's actually a lot of reasons why they can't admit failure like that are very adult and not very punk rock. Because like, it's like, hey man, just admit your failure, come on. But like, it's like well, we have stockholders to contend to. And there are arguments for all these things that, it's a delicate balance web of things that they're doing. But at the end of the day, if they want to make money and they want to truly be the successes that they claim to be, they have to line up with the market that they're in. And just as another example, when you're a hardcore action figure guy, you follow the deals because you don't want to spend full price on all these things, especially when you know that eventually you're going to see some of these toys in the cutout bin. So you're constantly playing a game of predicting what toys you don't have to worry about getting the moment they come out because you know they're going to be available long after, right? And again, this is how you know. I know what characters are popular because it's really hard to find them now. They came out, I didn't buy them at the time, I had a fire, I wasn't buying toys. Now I'm looking for them and I can't find them. Or I find them and they're really expensive. That's how you know they're popular. That's it. Done. Let me tell you, I can go buy a Ray loose from the package very, very cheaply right now, anywhere on planet Earth. And I knew that was going to be the case because you saw it in the toys. There are places like Ollie's and Ross and TJ Maxx and Marshall's, if you're in California area, that get the clearance sale Star Wars toys, Marvel Legends, anything like that. So if you're somebody like me who likes to have extra equipment or is a customizer like my buddy Aaron, who he'll take these bodies and turn them into other characters when he can get them cheaply, and the right character that isn't really worth anything to you is worth a lot to him because it's just a generic character that's great for his generic space of city. He's working on a city right now too, but he's always been, playing at a very high level in terms of like sculpting pieces for faces, and he actually has a little business called Big Head Studios with his friends where he makes alternative heads for these action figures. Super dope. I mean, this is what happens when you're really a part of this community. You get into it in another way so you can be a part of it in a greater fashion. And for me, it was being a creator so I could control how we were playing with the toys, but rather not control it. But, I just want to give you guys more ways to play with it right later as I got older and I saw them kind of messing it up. And I wanted to come in and take control back so I could return it to the way that was doing the most good. And certainly, as I say on the show all the time, there's always room for other things and additive things. It's about not changing the previous things. So there are movies that will get toy lines and there are properties that will eventually get toys. But so often the toys are the thing that starts it. The Transformers is a toy line. G.I. Joe is a toy line. Masters of the Universe is a toy line. Masters of the Universe in particular has continued to sell amazing toys despite the fact that they've fumbled a lot of balls with themselves as far as their mass media appeal, films and things like that. They could be making a lot of money off of some Masters of the Universe films, and they don't know what they're doing. And even like the animated series that they did recently, they really bothered the fans in a lot of ways. I was one of those fans who was definitely not really into it. They have failed to really just go for it and make something legit starring these characters based on some of the basics of the classic story of Eternia and the eternal battle between Skeletor and He-Man. It's some fun shit, man. It really is. It's just like super simple fun. And if they would just treat it right, they could be selling more than just toys. But they're scared to. And it's funny because they'll get there eventually. I mean, we've all slowly but surely gotten to these things that I love being taken more seriously. And the toys, the ones like Transformers, it's still not being taken seriously. When you see these Transformers movies, the story is all about the human beings. They won't put any of the story on the robots because they think the robots, like, nobody cares, it's just a robot. And they could be, making people empathize with a robot if they were doing this correctly. But instead, they just do the same thing that they've always done and make you empathize with the humans. And it's actually a great disservice. The series of Transformers in the animated series, when it's done well, that's the really cool thing about it, is that it makes you empathize with the robots. Sometimes does really interesting things in terms of thinking about AI and how AI would interact with itself and how AI would interact with you. It's very interesting. So to pull that punch is really just them being ashamed of the aspect of the toys here that make this so ridiculous. But it's not as ridiculous as you might imagine. Anthropomorphic animals have been our favorite thing about every Disney animated movie for a very long time now. So, it really is there to be done. The Transformers of the world and He-Man, they just need to be handled more seriously, and everybody would go freaking nuts for them. I mean, really, really, really well done if they could just bring some of these designs to life, especially some of the stuff, the great designs that the Four Horsemen Studios have done over the years of these different characters, these different monsters, some of their basic color schemes. They just look cool, man. I love Masters of the Universe. Masters of the Universe is really my first toy love. And if not for Masters of the Universe being so freaking cool and imprinting on me so hardcore as a kid, I probably wouldn't be the toy guy that I am today. And I really have to thank Masters of the Universe. I was also a Ninja Turtles guy, a Power Rangers guy. These toy lines, money will be spent to put out the toys because the toys will sell. Kind of always. They sell more to normal people when they have a big promotion with an animated series or a film or something like that going on, but they always sell the really good ones, the ones that are based on the toy properties that people love. The toy properties basically never die. The other things, they live and die based on toy sales and merchandising sales. So I think I've covered this pretty good. What did I say here? For years, Star Wars sold incredible merch until they tarnished the brand. Things have all but dried up. Yeah, nowadays, Star Wars toys are not there. And Star Trek toys, they never got there either because we don't like this Star Trek. We like Star Trek the way it was. We just weren't super passionate about action figures. Usually speaking, the biggest sales driver is the bottom of the market, the geek culture, merchants and merchant affiliates, people who work in the business, who deal in this stuff because we love this, because it is our business, because it's what we do. It's because we love this stuff. We kind of know everything that's going on from the bottom to the top because we're the bottom. This is the bottom. People who make comic books, people who make toys, people who make statues, people who go to conventions. Here's the very bottom of the geek hierarchy. And it's ultimately the bottom of the pop hierarchy as well, with exceptions in more like sort of like reality stars and things like that that go outside the entertainment medium purview of comic conventions and sci-fi fantasy conventions. But it's a really, really big chunk of it right here. And if you want to know everything there is to know, just start buying toys on a weekly basis and trying to get yourself good deals and trying to find out where things are on clearance. And very quickly you'll go, okay, well, that's not doing very well. Here it is in the clearance section. Here is all of these things from this movie. Clearly, it didn't do well. And a lot of times people from the top, they're like because you'll think that the toy people aren't dictating every dissenting voice that you're hearing for the most part. Like we are. They're getting their information from us. We're the merchants who are buying the things or not buying the things or watching the things not get bought. We know what the audience is responding to. We know what people are showing up to the shops to get. we're seeing it. And if you're good and you're cool and you make a lot of friends in this business over time, then you'll have a lot of friends and a big range of people to ask and find out what the truth of the matter is. And I am one of those people. And I know what the truth of the matter is. And the truth of the matter is, Hollywood took over our business for a little while, wore us like an Edgar suit, and now are slowly taking us off because we're not doing good for them, because they were wearing us like an Edgar suit and doing terrible things, Frankenstein-like things, with our beloved geek culture mythology. Anyway, me and my friends, we know all about this. And I'd love for you to come join us Thursday, 4 Pacific time, 4 Pacific for me. And I am going to be talking toys with some of my best buddies. And we are going to be continuing this conversation about just all the things that you know because you're a toy guy. And you know these things because you play with toys and you're following the market. So I think everybody would normally just think, oh, you play with toys, like this kid. Because we play with toys and we're adults, the information that we have and the information we've uncovered trying to get the best deals and know when we have to strike while the iron's hot and when we can wait for a toy to be old and get it for cheap. Like, that's the difference. If I know that I'm going to have to pay hundreds of dollars for this toy in the future, like, I need to save myself money because I want to be able to buy as many toys as possible without not, you get it. You get what I'm saying. So I'm going to get Ray. I'm going to have Ray, but I'm going to buy her very cheaply in the clearance bin at Ross after it's come through the thing. So, I mean, I have it, but cheaply. Anyway, come on down. It's Toys, Toys, Toys with the coolest geeks alive, Jesse Blaze Snyder and friends. Also, send all letters and requests to jesseblaze@jessesnyder.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at coolestgeekjbs. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you so much for listening, and join me again next time for another fabulous episode of The Coolest Geek Alive!
Favorite part! Isn't that heavy? I'll play that. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Coolest alive. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Stay with your tribe. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Revenge of the Geeks. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Week after weeks. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Laughing with you. It's gonna be fucking awesome. And crying sometimes too. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Spelling it out. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Making you shout.
You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snyder. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
You like that? It's a kazoo solo. I played that too. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Talking some shit. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Living your shit. My voice is fucking awesome. Food in our mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Get in the mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Tell all your friends. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Call right or text. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Raising the bar. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Straight to the stars. It's gonna be fucking awesome. It's starting soon. Straight to the top. Passing the moon. It's gonna be fucking awesome. On with the show. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Ready, set, go. It's going to be fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Just wait. You'll see. You'll all see.